There's a question no one asks enough: can being too nice become a weakness? We grow up believing that kindness is always good, that being agreeable makes us moral, that saying yes keeps the peace. But what if that's not the full picture? What if being too nice isn't just ineffective but actually dangerous? Not just for you, but for the world around you. In this video, we're going to uncover the Stoic answer to this paradox, a deep, ancient truth that's more relevant now than ever. We'll explore why being nice but not too nice is the key to living with strength, clarity, and purpose. Buckle up, because this isn't just about manners. This is about power, about boundaries, about the soul of who you are becoming. And by the end, you'll understand why the Stoics believe that unchecked kindness can actually become a form of self-betrayal. Let's start with something the Stoics were obsessed with: virtue. For them, virtue wasn't about being liked. It was about living in accordance with nature, with reason, with truth. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." But notice he didn't say be a nice one. He said be a good one. That's different. Because goodness requires judgment, discernment, sometimes even confrontation. And yet, many of us fall into the trap of thinking that to be good, we must be soft. We must avoid conflict. We must never offend. But the Stoics would challenge that. They'd ask, if your kindness costs you your integrity, is it still virtue or is it cowardice in disguise?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Here's the hard truth most people avoid. Being too nice often comes from fear. The fear of rejection. The fear of being disliked. The fear of rocking the boat. And so we say yes when we mean no. We stay silent when something should be spoken. We tolerate what should be challenged. Not because we're virtuous, but because we're afraid. But the Stoics remind us that fear is a poor guide. Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." So what opinion are we carrying when we choose niceness over truth? Often it's the belief that our worth is tied to other people's comfort. That if we upset someone, we've failed ethically. But in reality, we've only failed to be whole. And wholeness, not approval, is the Stoic aim. Let's make this even more real. Think about someone in your life who's too nice. Maybe it's you. How often does that niceness lead to resentment? To burnout? To feeling invisible? The irony is brutal. We try to avoid conflict by being overly kind and end up creating inner conflict instead. We prioritize peace on the outside while chaos builds on the inside. But Stoicism teaches us that true peace is internal. It's not about managing how others feel, it's about managing how we act. And sometimes the most ethical thing you can do is disappoint someone. Say no. Set a boundary. Speak a hard truth. Because that moment, though uncomfortable, is a form of love not just for them, but for yourself. So I ask you now, where in your life are you being kind at the expense of your character? The fire and the frame, why boundaries are the real form of compassion. Let's start with a metaphor. Kindness is fire. It warms, it illuminates, it brings life. But without a frame, a fireplace, a boundary, it burns everything down. Stoicism teaches us that virtue must be structured, not uncontained. That's why being too nice without clear boundaries isn't actually kindness. It's indulgence. And indulgence, especially emotional indulgence, leads to disintegration. Imagine giving without limit, helping without pause, agreeing without thought. At first it looks noble, admirable, but over time it erodes you. You're no longer acting from strength, but from compulsion. You're no longer giving freely, but out of fear of what will happen if you don't. That's not Stoic. That's servitude dressed as virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." But what most people miss is that this doesn't mean allowing others to walk all over you. It means holding yourself to the highest standard of clarity, honesty, and courage, even if others misunderstand you. The Stoic doesn't lash out, but they also don't submit. They stay centered. They know that true compassion is not about pleasing others, it's about serving the truth. And sometimes truth is sharp. Sometimes truth hurts. But it heals. Niceness, when weaponized to avoid discomfort, delays healing. It's like putting a bandage over a wound that needs surgery. That's why Stoic compassion is fierce. It's not emotional flattery, it's moral clarity. Let's zoom in on real life. You've probably been in situations where someone crossed a line and you said nothing. Maybe at work, maybe with family, maybe in a relationship. And you told yourself it's not worth it. I'll just let it go. But did you really let it go? Or did it just bury itself deeper into your frustration? The Stoics would say that every time we betray our principles for the sake of comfort, we lose a piece of ourselves. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." And that applies to emotional bravery too. The bravery to speak when silence is easy. The bravery to say no when yes is expected. The bravery to disappoint someone else so you don't disappoint yourself. So here's the question, if your kindness is making you smaller, is it still kindness, or is it a mask you wear to avoid being seen? Now, let's talk strategy. What do boundaries actually look like? In Stoicism, it's not about aggression or passive aggression. It's about calm assertion. The Stoic doesn't rage when a line is crossed, they simply move the line back with clarity. No guilt, no drama, just truth. Because they know that their time, energy, and values are finite and therefore sacred. And protecting those things isn't selfish. It's ethical. You don't owe everyone your availability. You don't owe everyone your agreement. What you owe is integrity. And integrity requires saying no, not out of cruelty, but out of care. Because every no to someone else is a yes to something more aligned. Your health, your purpose, your soul. So I ask you again, where in your life do you need to stop being nice and start being clear? When niceness becomes a cage, escaping the addiction to approval. Let's confront the hardest truth of all. Many of us aren't being nice because we're good, we're being nice because we're addicted to being liked. It's subtle, it's deep, and it's dangerous. We say yes not because it aligns with our values, but because we fear what a no might cost us. We apologize when no apology is needed. We tolerate disrespect to avoid conflict. We'd rather be uncomfortable ourselves than risk making someone else uncomfortable. But behind the smile, behind the nod, behind the pretending, there's a quiet scream, "See me. Approve of me. Don't leave me." Stoicism pierces through that illusion. It asks us not to perform virtue, but to embody it. Not to seek applause, but to seek alignment. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That's not just advice, it's liberation. Because the moment you stop needing everyone's approval is the moment you start becoming truly free. But this requires sacrifice. It means letting go of the need to be liked. It means being okay with people misunderstanding you, judging you, even resenting you. And that's hard, because we're social creatures. We crave connection. But the Stoics remind us connection without truth is not connection, it's dependency. And dependency is a cage. A beautiful cage, maybe, but a cage nonetheless. So ask yourself this: what part of yourself have you been silencing just to be liked? Let's go deeper. Why is approval so seductive? Because it gives us a false sense of control. If we're nice enough, agreeable enough, pleasing enough, maybe we won't be hurt. Maybe we won't be rejected. But Stoicism dismantles that fantasy. It teaches us that we control our actions, not the outcomes. We control our intentions, not others' interpretations. And if we live by trying to manage how people perceive us, we have already lost. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." That's the paradox. We betray ourselves to win affection from others. But in doing so, we lose the very person we're trying to protect ourselves. So what's the way out? How do we reclaim our power without becoming cold or cruel? The answer is Stoic equanimity, the calm strength to be kind without being compliant, to be generous without being exploited, and to be firm without being harsh. In practice, this means choosing clarity over comfort, saying what we mean, not explaining ourselves when no explanation is needed, letting people be disappointed, letting them walk away if they must, and still remaining rooted, still remaining open, still remaining kind. Because true kindness is not about avoiding harm, it's about standing in truth, even when truth is hard. So here's your final question: what would it feel like to be kind not for approval, but from power? This is the Stoic path. A path not of endless yeses, but of intentional action. A path where kindness is fire, but fire with a frame. Where love is strong, not soft. Where your life is shaped not by the fear of being disliked, but by the courage to be real. You don't need to be less kind, but you do need to be less afraid. Because when fear drives kindness, it's no longer virtue, it's survival. And you were made for more than survival. You were made for sovereignty. So the next time you're tempted to say yes when you mean no, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of love or out of fear? If it's fear, the Stoics have one word for you: courage. Now go live it. There's nothing more powerful and more misunderstood than a kind person with boundaries. We live in a world that often mistakes kindness for weakness. But the Stoics knew better. They knew that true kindness is an act of strength, not submission. It's not about sacrificing your soul to keep everyone else comfortable. It's about bringing your full self into every interaction, your clarity, your values, your presence. And that means sometimes saying no, sometimes stepping away, sometimes letting people be mad at you while you remain calm. Ancient Stoicism didn't teach us to be liked. It taught us to be aligned. And that alignment is what turns ordinary kindness into something sacred, something unshakable. Let's revisit one of the most misunderstood ideas in modern culture. Niceness is not virtue. Niceness is often reactive. It bends. It avoids. It seeks safety. But real virtue is proactive. It stands. It speaks. It risks. That's why the Stoics didn't just talk about abstract ethics. They practiced them in the face of power, corruption, exile, even death. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and still took time to write himself reminders like, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over." It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it. Niceness is not that rock. Niceness is the wave, constantly changing shape to avoid resistance. But you are meant to be the rock. Still, present, kind but never crumbling. One of the most liberating Stoic practices is detachment from reputation. That doesn't mean you don't care about others. It means you stop needing their validation to do what is right. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be a writer, write." In other words, if you wish to be kind without waiting for permission, praise, or recognition. And if your kindness ever becomes performative, if it's laced with a subtle expectation of a reward, then it's not Stoic. It's transactional. Stoicism invites us to give from abundance, not from insecurity. You help not because you want to be seen as good, but because you've become good. You don't need applause when you're already whole. So the next time you're standing at that invisible line between kindness and self-erasure, stop and remember this. You can be kind and still say no. You can be generous and still protect your time. You can be open-hearted and still walk away. Because the most Stoic kind of kindness is the kind that honors truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's misunderstood. Even when it means standing alone. That's not just Stoicism. That's power. That's peace. That's what it means to be nice but not too nice. And if you've made it this far, ask yourself one more question, maybe the most important one of all. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to be nice and started trying to be true? That's the life the Stoics were preparing you for. Not a life of approval, but a life of alignment. And in that alignment, you'll find the kind of kindness that nothing and no one can take away from you.